Hello friends, here's a story about a former UFC fighter who, after retirement, takes a job as a nightclub bouncer, and then his life takes such a terrifying turn. It'll blow your mind. So, without wasting any time, let's dive right into the story. At the beginning, we see a fighter named Carter, who's participating in an underground fight inside a club. Right then, a woman named Frankie arrives at the club, searching for Carter. She didn't know what he looked like, so she asks the bartender about him. The bartender points toward the guy fighting in the ring. That's Carter. Frankie silently hopes that he's the one she's been looking for. Meanwhile, outside the club, a mysterious man is sitting in a car. Inside, Carter is taking down opponents one after another, showing off his incredible strength. That's when the mysterious man enters the club and heads straight to the fight ring. We then find out this man is actually a famous UFC fighter named Dalton. He's come to fight Carter, but the moment Carter sees Dalton, he gets scared. He knew that fighting Dalton would be like inviting death. So, Carter tries to talk his way out and quietly walks out of the ring. Anyway, after all that, Dalton gets ready to leave. But on his way out, a mugger pulls a knife on him and tries to rob him. Dalton remains completely calm, showing no fear at all. The mugger, terrified just by looking into Dalton's eyes, as if he's seen a ghost, runs off. Just then, Frankie, who had followed Dalton outside, approaches him. She tells him that she came looking for someone strong, and he's even stronger than she imagined. The best fighter in the club wouldn't even dare fight him, but Dalton doesn't pay much attention to her and starts applying ointment to his wounds. Seeing that, Frankie shares her problem. She says, "I own a club too, but it's constantly getting wrecked by thugs. The bouncers I've hired can't control them at all. That's why I'm looking for someone strong like you." Dalton replies, "I'm not interested in your job. You should probably talk to Carter instead." Still, Frankie gives him her card and says, "Please think about it. If you change your mind, give me a call." After that, Dalton drives to a fuel station and falls asleep in his car out of exhaustion. A police officer later wakes him up and tells him to leave. That's when something triggers in Dalton's mind, and he drives his car onto the train tracks and parks it there. A train is seen speeding down the same track. At the very last moment, Dalton tries to move the car to save himself, but it's too late. The train hits the car, destroying part of it. Dalton survives the crash and eventually recovers from the trauma. That's when he decides to help Frankie. The next day, he sets off for the town of Florilla. After searching for a while, he finally finds Frankie's Roadhouse club. As soon as he walks in, he meets a bartender named Laura. Also, a guy named Billy sees Dalton and gets super excited because he's a huge fan. That day, Dalton just sat in the club, sipping coffee and admiring the town. He couldn't believe a place so peaceful could have violence in its clubs. But as night falls, the club's environment slowly turns chaotic. One by one, drunk guys start fighting and causing trouble. Billy tries hard to stop the fights, but nothing works. Despite everything, Dalton sits quietly. Then, a thug named Dell storms into the club with his gang. The moment people see Dell, they all flee the club. Billy tries to calm things down, but fails. Finally, Dalton steps in. He approaches Dell and says, "Let's take this outside and settle it before coming back in." But Dell doesn't listen, so Dalton quietly walks out toward Dell's bike. Seeing that, Dell and his crew follow him outside. Again, Dalton tells them to leave without making trouble, but Dell keeps provoking him for a fight. Eventually, Dalton loses his temper, beats them all up, and warns them to leave. But Dell, angry about getting beaten, attacks again. This time, Dalton brutally takes them all down, breaking bones if necessary. Then Dalton himself drives Dell and his gang to the hospital in Frankie's car. After getting Dell admitted, as Dalton is about to leave, a doctor named Ellie approaches him. She's fed up with all the violence and says, "I'm tired of seeing this nonsense every day. I'm going to report all of this to the police." Hearing that, Dalton chuckles and says, "Do you really think if the police were doing their job right, this kind of stuff would still happen?" Ellie realizes he's right. There's not much the cops can do. So she brings Dalton inside and bandages his wounds. Later, when Dalton returns to the club, Frankie is so impressed by what he did, she rewards him with a good amount of money. That night, as Dalton tries to sleep, he dreams of his past UFC fights. Anyway, Dalton slowly starts adjusting to life in this town. Over the next few days, he forms a close bond with a girl named Charlie. Dalton learns that Charlie's mother passed away a long time ago, and her father works 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Charlie runs a small boutique to help support her family. Meanwhile, we see 2 thugs, Rui and John, talking to their boss, Ben. They tell him that the night before, a club bouncer beat up Del and some of their other guys pretty badly. Hearing that, Ben gets furious and decides to destroy the roadhouse completely. Back at the club, a group of thugs starts trouble again. This time, Dalton lets Billy handle it. Billy does a decent job standing up to them until one of the thugs pulls out a knife. Dalton immediately steps in to protect Billy, and together they take down the thugs and kick them out. Dalton also begins training Billy, helping him become stronger and more capable. Dalton then meets a guy named Riff in the area. He used to be a boxer too. Dalton asks him to join the club as another bouncer, and Riff agrees. That night, Riff and Billy together take on a group of troublemakers again. But in the middle of it, another guy starts harassing Laura at the bar, trying to get free drinks from her. Seeing this, Dalton steps in and throws the guy out of the club. But as soon as he gets outside, Dalton sees Del waiting with more thugs. From a distance, Del shouts, "I'm coming for you! There's no mercy for you!" The next morning, Dalton is eating at a restaurant when he runs into Ellie again. Dalton asks her, "Why are the people in this town so aggressive? It's like they're always ready for a fight." Ellie explains that recently, illegal activities in the area have increased. While trying to explain, Ellie seems to develop a soft spot for Dalton. Later that night, while talking with Frankie, Dalton learns that the club was originally founded by her late uncle. She even shows Dalton a picture of him. Impressed by everything Dalton has done, Frankie gives him more money. As Dalton heads back to his boat with the money, suddenly a car rams into him from behind. It's Del. He's trying to kill Dalton with his car. Dalton manages to fight him off, but ends up falling into the water. Still, he manages to swim to shore, but waiting there is Del, armed with a gun. Another fight breaks out between them. As usual, Dalton beats Del down while trying to convince him to stop all this madness. But Del refuses to listen. Just then, out of nowhere, a crocodile lunges out of the water and swallows Del whole. The next morning, Dalton is visibly shaken, thinking over everything that happened. That's when a local fisherman tells him, "I think Del used to manage drug operations around this area." Hearing that, Dalton becomes even more concerned. If that's true, Del probably had powerful people behind him, people who might come after him now. To be sure, Dalton heads to Charlie's library and does research on local drug cartels, but he doesn't find much information. Later, while heading home, some of Ben's goons ambush him and hold him at gunpoint, demanding answers about Del. But Dalton isn't afraid at all. Instead, he grabs the thug's arm and breaks it, then warns him, "Tell your boss he messed with the wrong guy. Tell him to shut this whole thing down, or no one's walking out alive." Hearing this, another goon nervously steps forward. Dalton says to him, "If your boss has any guts, tell him to meet me tonight." Then Dalton walks straight up to Frankie and asks, "Why is there always trouble in this club? Why is it always crawling with thugs?" But Frankie doesn't explain anything. In fact, she tells him to stop thinking about it altogether. That only makes Dalton more suspicious. Meanwhile, the two thugs who got beat up by Dalton go straight to their boss, Ben, and tell him everything. Ben loses his temper. Just then, Ben gets a call from his father, Gerald, but Ben is so angry he throws his phone into the ocean without answering. Scene change. We meet a psycho named Knox. He just got caught red-handed by his girlfriend's husband during an affair. Now he's running around town, naked. That's when Gerald calls him and says, "I need you to take care of my son Ben's mess. Handle him." Knox is happy to take the job. Next morning, Dalton sees that Dr. Ellie has arrived with a police boat. He's surprised, but Ellie says, "Let's go for a ride on the water." They head out into the ocean, and in the middle of the sea, they sit and talk. Ellie asks Dalton about his past, but he doesn't say much. He says he just wants to leave, but Ellie says, "I did a lot of research before I came here. I know everything about you." As they talk, they slowly grow closer. Meanwhile, Knox arrives in town. The first thing he does is punch Ben in the nose and says, "That's for not answering your father's call." Ben now realizes his father has sent Knox to keep him in line. Back on the boat, as soon as Ellie drops Dalton off on the shore, a group of cops show up and arrest him. One of them, Officer Mike, actually works for Ben. While driving, Mike keeps threatening Dalton, trying to scare him. But Dalton isn't afraid, so Mike decides they're just going to kill him. They're about to beat Dalton to death when suddenly Ellie shows up and slaps Mike across the face. She rescues Dalton and gets him out of there. On the way, she explains, "Mike is my father. He used to work for Gerald, Ben's father, and now works for Ben. That's why I live separately with my mother. I want nothing to do with my dad's business." Seeing all this, Ellie tells Dalton, "You should leave this town." Hearing that, Dalton feels defeated. He heads to the club, and there, Ben is waiting for him. Ben sits next to him and plays the video of Dalton's last UFC match. Dalton had lost the match, and in a fit of rage, he had beaten his opponent so badly that the man died inside the ring. After that tragic event, Dalton quit fighting for good. Ben walks out of the club and orders Knox to destroy the place. As expected, Knox storms inside and starts trashing everything. Poor Billy and Riff try to stop him, but they're no match. Dalton just sits quietly, watching the chaos unfold. Knox keeps provoking him, taunting him to fight. Dalton doesn't want to, but finally, after enough pushing, he fights back. He beats Knox and throws him out of the club. Police arrive right as the fight ends. Ellie comes to take Dalton, but he refuses to go with her. Instead, he heads toward his boat. Dalton has decided it's time to leave this town. Frankie rushes in to stop him. She apologizes for hiding the truth from him. Turns out, Ben wants to take over her club and build a luxury resort. That's why the club is constantly under attack. She begs Dalton not to leave. "If you go, they'll take my last piece of hope away from me." But Dalton walks away without a word. On his way, he sees smoke rising. Charlie's library has been burned down by the thugs. She's now in the hospital, badly injured. Hearing that, Dalton snaps. He drops everything and storms toward Knox's house, to end this once and for all. But when Dalton gets there, he doesn't find Knox. Instead, he runs into another thug named Wings. That's when he finds out the real reason they burned Charlie's bookstore. It was because Charlie was Dalton's friend. Without wasting a second, Dalton unleashes his rage. He beats Wings to a pulp, breaks his neck, and tosses his lifeless body into the swimming pool. It becomes clear. The beast inside Dalton has fully awakened. Just then, another thug shows up. But instead of killing him, Dalton spares his life, in exchange for some valuable information. The thug tells him where Ben's black money is being transferred the next day. Dalton now knows the location of the $1 million transaction. He heads back home. But that night, Dalton can't sleep. Every time he closes his eyes, he's haunted by the memory of his last fight, the one where he accidentally killed his opponent inside the ring. Morning comes. Dalton goes straight to the location of Ben's money transfer. There, he takes down a few corrupt cops, loads all the black money onto a boat, and sends it drifting into the sea. Then he starts making explosives. That's when Mike shows up. He tells Dalton, "Ben has kidnapped my daughter Ellie. If you don't return the money, he won't let her go." Hearing that, Dalton doesn't hesitate. He takes a boat and heads straight for Ben. Meanwhile, we see Knox relaxing at his house. But something feels off. It's eerily quiet. Cut to, Dalton reaches Ben. One of Ben's thugs, named John, punches Dalton the moment he sees no money. Dalton finally meets Ben face to face and sees Mike, Ellie's father, sitting right there. Mike admits, "Ellie was never kidnapped. I lied to bring you here." But Ben laughs and says, "Actually, I did kidnap her." Mike explodes in anger. Ben threatens Dalton again, "Give me my money back or I'll kill Ellie." Before he can finish that sentence, Knox arrives by boat. Dalton presses the remote trigger, and Knox's boat explodes into flames. The entire dock is blown apart. In the chaos, Dalton breaks into the burning structure and rescues Ellie. They smash a window in the sinking yacht and dive into the sea. They try to swim away, but Knox, still alive, appears in another boat, charging at them. Dalton quickly grabs a nearby thug and throws him into Knox's boat, slowing it down for a moment. He helps Ellie into another boat to escape, but sitting inside that boat is Ben. Ben speeds away with Ellie on board. At that moment, Knox comes after Dalton again. Dalton fights Knox, throws him off the boat, then takes control of Knox's boat and races after Ben. But Knox isn't finished. He grabs onto a rope tied to the back of Dalton's boat. Ben sees this and turns his own boat around, heading straight for Dalton. Dalton jumps onto Ben's boat just in time. A brutal fight breaks out between Dalton and Ben. Dalton is about to finish him off when Ellie screams, "Jump now, or we'll crash." They both leap off the boat. Ben doesn't. His boat crashes straight into the roadhouse, exploding into flames. Meanwhile, Knox, still clinging to that rope, makes it to shore. He hijacks a car and speeds toward the roadhouse. Dalton and Ben are already in a deadly showdown. Dalton, consumed by rage, breaks nearly every bone in Ben's body. Then, Knox arrives by car. Another savage fight breaks out, Dalton versus Knox, neither one backing down. Knox grabs a wooden plank and beats Dalton with it. He's about to land a killing blow, but Ben suddenly calls out, "Forget him! Save me first! Take me to a hospital!" Knox gets so furious at Ben's selfishness, he kills him on the spot. Now turning back to Dalton, Knox charges one last time, but Dalton seizes the moment, stabs him in the kidney, and ends it once and for all. As the destruction fades, Ellie and her father, Mike, arrive. Seeing everything, Mike says only one thing: "Leave this town, I'll handle the rest." Dalton nods. He starts walking away. Ellie, Frankie, Charlie, everyone begs him to stay. But Dalton doesn't look back. He leaves them all behind, headed toward a new destination. And just like that, the story comes to an end.